Hello everyone and welcome to another Millionaire lineup review. It is the end of week 7. I did not win $1 million, but someone won $500,000 and another person won $1 million. So let's just go over their lineups and see what we can learn. So this guy C Salmon has a little Roto-Grinders tag. Not sure if he's a pro or not. Won $500,000 Sunday million. Actually, if hilariously enough, was probably sweating bullets here because Chris Hogan is 1 point. A lineup with Chris Hogan is 1 point behind him. And basically one Chris Hogan catch more, and this guy's screwed. And he happened to just fade it. So our patter was probably very excited and sadly could not get the one more Chris Hogan reception. C Salmon ecstatic that he holds on. So let's see what he did here. Let's just start with the stack. So Tyrod Taylor, he didn't actually stack with a wide receiver. I think this is okay for a couple reasons. One is Tyrod Taylor's a running quarterback. We see the 53 rush yards. Some of his fantasy points are just not going to be correlated with a receiver because of that. So he could run for a touchdown. He gets 5 points running. So his high upside games don't necessarily mean that he also has a high upside game with receiver. The other thing is LaShawn McCoy kind of is a huge receiver. I think he has one of the highest weighted opportunity ratings out of running backs in any offense. So this sort of is a pairing, and that being said, McCoy did not score a receiving touchdown, but I think this is good enough in terms of just a quarterback pair. I still actually would prefer, just because the correlations are so high on FanDuel without PPR bonuses, I would prefer just stacking someone with Taylor, but that would have been a disaster if he did because none of his receivers did well. He could have done something like use Jameis Winston or Jay Cutler or Dak Prescott, and it would have worked out better. Well, not Jay Cutler, but Jameis Winston or Dak Prescott, and it would have worked out better. So I think that would have been an interesting pivot if I were to give advice on this lineup. Is if you're not going to stack Tyrod Taylor with anyone on FanDuel, now DraftKings is a different story, I would just go with someone who you're actually stacking. As for the other plays, Ezekiel Elliott, 21% owned. He was pretty chalk. I'm surprised not more chalky. This was a great regress to the mean play in terms of Elliott. Hadn't had some good games in a while, but it was a good matchup. He's obviously a great running back. I think it made a lot of sense at only 8,700 with Le'Veon Bell at 9,700. I thought they were pretty close. So Ezekiel Elliott paid off real big. As for the wide receivers, Adam Thielen, I think this is a good play at 6,900 with Steph Diggs out. He does get a lot of target share, as we saw last week. It didn't work out that much, but I think he did have 12 targets, so the volume was certainly there. Mike Evans, great wide receiver, supposedly bad matchup. I really like plays like this because I think people sort of undervalue them. I certainly undervalued it a little bit, but I also was worried about Jameis Winston's shoulder. But when you have a guy who is kind of high salary, nothing stands out aside from the fact they're just a beast of a player, that's a great time to play them. Same with Jarvis Landry, I think. I'm surprised. Well, 12% ownership is solid. But without Devontae Parker, he's just been getting a ton of targets. He's a great red zone threat. Another great game from him, not surprised. Jason Witten, someone I would not have used because San Francisco has been good against the tight end, and Witten really just does not seem very good this season. He's very old, being a little slow. He just doesn't seem to have that much upside, but it did work out better than someone in the same price range like Kyle Rudolph or George Kittle, who didn't do very much. So this play was key, and tight end was really barren this week. But I would say that in hindsight, I just don't think this play has that much upside. As for defenses, Bears, I really like them on DraftKings. They're only 2,200. And I kind of like to hedge a little bit, so I didn't use them on FanDuel. And I also like to pair D with kicker, so I didn't use... the Bears kicker's not very good, so I really didn't want to pair them there. That being said, I think people don't go contrarian enough with kicker and D on FanDuel, especially kicker. Kicker is just like the most random thing ever. The fact that Kai Forbath, who's in a dome, very, very important, by the way. You want to take your kickers when they're playing in domes or with low winds, and make sure to check out Kevin Ross weather updates for that and just be aware of which teams play in domes. But Kai Forbath in a dome, good kicker. Team is favored. He's 2.4% owned. That's just outrageous to me. And Bears, again, the 4,300 isn't great salary savings. On DraftKings, only 2,200. That's a really, really great salary savings. But I think at 1% ownership, it makes sense to take a flyer if you think they're going to have that low ownership. So overall, I think this is a solid lineup. There's nothing that I just absolutely love about it, but I think it's very solid. I don't think there's really a huge mistake here. Aside from, I think I'd go a different direction at quarterback, despite the fact that I really like Tyrod Taylor this week. I just like to pair. I really like to stack on FanDuel. I think it's optimal. So congratulations to C. Salmon. Now for DraftKings Week 7. This one, I really, really like the stack. We've talked about Ezekiel Elliott and LaShawn McCoy. LaShawn McCoy was like the chalkiest chalk ever at 7,400 on DraftKings with his pass-catching ability. Ezekiel Elliott, again, we talked about. Russell Wilson and Doug Baldwin. I think this is a great stack. As we've seen over and over again in the Millionaire Maker, as I do these reviews, elite quarterbacks win the Millionaire Maker. Guys like Russell Wilson, guys like Tom Brady, guys like Drew Brees. Russell Wilson, middling matchup, but he's an elite quarterback, so he has that upside. He has that running upside, which I really like on DraftKings. Baldwin is his best receiver. You could have also paired him with Jimmy Graham. That would have been fine as well. None of their prices are outrageous. Russell Wilson's is solid, though, at 6,400. Really do like this pair. Mark Ingram, I could have actually done without in this lineup. I think spending up at 3 running backs and going small with 2 wide receivers and a tight end is probably not going to pay off very well in the future. There's just not enough upside here on weeks that are higher scoring. It's going to really hurt. So I would have probably paid down with Mark Ingram and then paid up with Lee or Stills. Hopefully Lee, because Stills did really well. But I think this is okay. I also just think Mark Ingram, with his potential ownership, was a fade for me. I just didn't like him that much. I think people were kind of overrating him. I just didn't think there was enough fantasy points to go around, but he had a good game, so I was wrong about that. Marquise Lee, I think it was a good matchup. Obviously, I had touted Blake Bortles on the Daily Fantasy Flex podcast on FantasyLabs earlier this week, just because the matchup's good. Both these guys, Lee and Hearns and Bortles, were really priced down. So I think this was a solid play here with Lee, although he was injured. But he got him at lower ownership because he was questionable before the game started. So that was an interesting play. Kenny Stills, not really on my radar, but he was cheap, 4,400. He had injury impact with Devontae Parker out. I think he made sense as a play, especially at the low ownership. Tyler Kroft also, I don't think there was this is an amazing play or anything. Only 3K. So what is cool about this play is you're not getting intrigued by guys like George Kittle or Evan Ingram. Evan Ingram had a good game, so that's fine. Or Jimmy Graham or people like that. You're just staying the course. You're saying, I know what I get with Tyler Kroft, not chasing the shiny light that was George Kittle this week. And it worked out because you got a receiving touchdown against a D that's been mediocre against tight ends. 4 receptions, 23 yards. Tight end did really badly this week. So I think this is a good play. And punting at tight end with guys who can get a touchdown is really smart. Then the Bears D, obviously, great play. Only 2,200. I love punting at D on DraftKings. I think punting at defense, you can get over $1,000 in savings against some of the higher priced defenses. And you can have games like this, especially defenses that are talented like the Bears or the Chargers. Chargers also had 27 points, 2,400 on DraftKings. Look to punt D, even if it doesn't stand out. Honestly, I think it's a good play. Lastly, I'm just going to look at week 6 really fast on DraftKings because I didn't do it last week. And again, Matthew Stafford, elite quarterback. I think it is really important to go with guys like this. They do have the high upside. Good pairing with Golden Tate. Larry Fitzgerald. Tampa Bay, I honestly think, is just the nut wide receiver matchup for many, many, many reasons. I might write an article about it this week at some point. But they play at a really fast pace. I think they're going to allow a lot of plays this season. Larry Fitzgerald, under the radar play. Good at our boy Adam Thielen. 9 receptions for 97 yards. There's great injury impact. Green Bay has also been a great matchup for wide receivers, by the way. Mark Ingram, way more chalky that week. He's only 4,400. That was a joke. And Melvin Gordon as well. Really great as a pass catcher in week 6. I think in game flows where the Chargers are down in the game, he's going to do a lot better than when they're up because his yards per carry has just never been good. Jerick McKinnon was really chalky at only 4,100 that week as well. Cameron Braid, this was just sort of another tight end that didn't stand out a lot, but obviously is a good player and had a good game. But and the Ravens D, 3,700. So he paid up for D here, and it paid off. That being said, I do think that in general paying down for D does work out in the long run. And I do like when you can, if you can pay down at running back and pay up at wide receiver on DraftKings, it really does help because guys like Marquise Lee in week 7 and usually Kenny Stills, I think you got really lucky here. They don't have massive games. Yeah, it's really hard to have 2 of these guys hit for massive games. You can get 1 a lot of time, but you usually can't get 2. So I really love when you can pay down at running back in some way because then you can afford the guys like Golden Tate, Larry Fitzgerald, Adam Thielen in a good matchup where you can get that upside at wide receiver. And then running backs, obviously, the low-priced ones, they do have upside because you can get they're touchdown guys, so you can get rushing touchdowns, you can get 100-yard bonuses. So I think this was actually a very optimal structure for a lineup. Aside from the not punting at defense, although playing the Ravens that week was the best move. And I do like elite quarterbacks on DraftKings don't get sucked into guys like CJ Beathard, George Kittle. I feel like the stuff doesn't work out. Sucked into, Blake Bortles and Allen Hurns was pretty good. That would have worked out okay, but that's going to not happen that much. Andy Dalton, AJ Green, in a tough matchup, that offensive line is just terrible. Man, I'm going blank on quarterbacks right now. But yes, I really don't think punting at the quarterback position does pay off, and it worked out this week, and I think in the future on DraftKings, it's paying up for those elite guys really, really does help. So that was very wordy, but I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit the like button down at the bottom or down under this video, and share this video if you like it as well on Twitter. You can tweet me at MaxJSteinberg if you have any questions. You can also find me Daily Fantasy Winners, the forum. We chat about football every week, so make sure to join for week 8. And hope that you had a good weekend. Hope you made some money in Daily Fantasy this week, and good luck with your lineups next week. Bye, guys.